So let's get straight on with the next of our Edit Key Focus buttons. A and S are related to the trim command. Let me zoom in more on the beginning of my session. So I'll use my zoom control here. I can make an edit selection like so. And if I go to Edit Trim Clip, you might have already discovered Trim to Selection just here. Command T being the shortcut, and this will remove everything from the clip that wasn't currently selected. Let me undo that. I've just made an insertion point, that is a single click without dragging with the mouse. My A key will trim my clip up to that insertion point. Let's undo that, and see the S key will do the opposite and remove everything after my insertion point. D, F and G are my fade commands. If I make a selection in a clip to the end of the clip, pressing F will perform a fade out. And this is the same thing as bringing up Command F, but you don't get to change any of the fade settings, it just uses its current default. If I'd made my selection from the beginning of the clip, F will now of course perform a fade in. Now the D key is just to the left of the F key, so it's easy to remember that this will be a fade in to my current insertion point. And the G key is just to the right, and so that's going to be fade from my current insertion point. I'll show you something else with fades here. I'll make a selection of just the fade, and if I press backspace, this won't delete the audio, it'll just get rid of the fade. If however I want to get rid of a lot of fades in one go, while pressing backspace now will get rid of everything here. I can go to Edit, Fades, and choose Delete, and this removes the fades without affecting the actual clips in any other way. The G, H, and J keys are related to timeline and edit selections. Now currently I have these linked, so if I press Shift / I will unlink them. And I'll show you here for a second. I can make an edit selection and a timeline selection like so. This would actually be a good point to show you a couple of the other keys. Left square bracket will play the edit selection. And the right square bracket is pretty much the same as pressing play and will play the timeline selection. Now, in order to demonstrate these H, J and K keys, I'm going to create a new mono track just after this snare, so Command Shift N, and I'd like to add a reverse effect. Oops. In here. I created the reverse effect earlier, it's somewhere in my clip list. It would be difficult to find, so I'll quickly turn on Clip Key Focus and start typing the word reverse. There it is, and I can simply drag this back to here. Okay, let me put my key focus back here and close the clip list. Now the H, J and K keys are to do with moving clips to timeline selections. So if I make a timeline selection like so, I select my clip, and when I press H it will move the clip so the clip start matches my timeline position. K moves the clip so that the end point matches the timeline position. J involves a little bit of extra knowledge. If I zoom in on my current selected clip, and I'm going to use E, remember, for explode from the last video, I can quite clearly see it. I'm going to solo this. A shortcut for solo selected track is Shift S. And I'll play this to you. Now if I press the space bar, this would actually play me whatever is my current timeline selection. I'm going to use the left square bracket key I showed you a moment ago. Now this reverse effect has a peak just here, and this is the section I want to really ensure is lined up in time with the forward snare hit that this came from. So I make an insertion point, I go to clip and I choose identify sync point. You see this little green triangle here is showing me my new sync point. So this is, if you like, a locate within a clip. I could, if I needed to, pick it up and move it as well. Okay, let's zoom out from here. So press E again. Let's unsolo the snare. Up in the toolbar you can see there's an indicator that tells you something is soloed, and actually clicking on this will unsolo it. You can see my timeline position here. I select my clip, and when I press the J key, it'll move the clip so that my new sync point matches the timeline position. There's another way of doing something very similar, which is using edit selections rather than timeline selections. I'll make an edit selection here. Holding the control key and clicking on another clip will move the clip so that the beginning of it matches your edit selection you'd made. Holding control and command together will actually move so that the end matches my edit selection point. And well, if I want this reverse snare to be exactly lined up, I'm going to click somewhere in front of it, turn on tab to transient, that's option command tab, press tab a couple of times to get to the right point, and now hold control and shift and click, and it's moved my sync point to match this snare hit. Let's give this a listen. Okay, it's quite a subtle effect, but I like it. The L and apostrophe keys act in the same way as this tab key does. So I currently have tab to transient turned on. So apostrophe is the same thing as tab forward to transient, and L is tab backwards to transient, so the same thing as option tab. And this will also follow my tab to transient mode. Then we get to the bottom row, and these are used well, a lot. The Z key, that's Z for you Americans, this is the undo, and it's the same thing as Command Z, just saves your finger. So if I was to select the reverse effect and get rid of it, pressing Z will allow me to undo that. The same goes for X, C and V. These are cut, copy and paste, so the same things as Command X, Command C and Command V. Let me show you how we can actually put a lot of this into practice. If I wish to move this snare hit into a different track, I can do this after making my rough selection without touching the mouse. I press Tab until I get to my snare, Shift Tab to select the entire snare, X to cut the snare, semicolon moves my selection down to the lower track, and V will paste. So you can see this kind of efficiency can make a massive difference to the way you actually use Pro Tools. The B key is also very frequently used. This allows me to break a selection, is the way to remember it. So if I make an insertion point, you've seen before under Edit, Separate Clip at Selection, Command E will slice it into 2 clips, while pressing B does the same. And if I have an edit selection made, it'll make 2 slices, just the same as Command E. Let me put this back, but I'm going to do this using the heel separation tool, Command H. The M, comma, period or full stop and / keys are nudge values, and they're nudge timeline options. So I'll make a timeline selection here, and oops, a bit too low here, and here is my nudge value, and it's set to 1 bar at the moment. Let me turn it down to quarter note. Now when I press the full stop or period, this will nudge my timeline forward by 1 quarter note. I'll keep doing it like so. Comma nudges the other way. And you can see the next value after quarter note is half note. And that's the way to remember the M key is its nudge more. So it'll nudge by 1 more than my current selection. So it's doing half notes or quarter notes accordingly. And the / key is nudge more in the other direction. If you have your timeline and edit selections linked, shift /, then you can find nudge keys very useful to just, well, move your clips around. Now that's pretty much all of the edit key commands that you're going to need to know about. There's a hell of a lot I've just thrown at you, so you might need to watch this video a few times for it to all sink in. But as I said at the beginning of the last video, I'd thoroughly recommend that you make the effort.